When my mother-in-law looked at my growing belly and uttered that sentence cold and sharp as a blade, I knew that moment would shape my entire relationship with her. What happened next left everyone in the room, including my husband, speechless. This is how I found my voice at the moment it mattered most. I am Amira Diallo, and I am 28 years old. I am a British software engineer of Senegalese descent. I live with my husband in a small flat in East London, quiet and warm enough to call home. My husband, Camille Carter, is a senior civil servant for the UK government. We've been married for 2 years and are now expecting our first child. I'm 6 months pregnant, and while my face may glow with hormonal changes, as people often say, my heart is heavy with tension. I feel both excited and anxious about this journey into motherhood. But the anxiety isn't just about giving birth or raising a child, it's about one person, Camille Carter, my mother-in-law. From the earliest days of dating Liam, Camille made one thing clear. I was not the woman she had envisioned for her only son. Not through outright words, she was far too polished for that, but in all the small things. The slight pause when she complimented my dress, the, "Are you sure about everything?" she whispered to Liam when she thought I wasn't listening. The constant, out-of-place mentions of Liam's ex-girlfriend Fiona, the blonde law student from Oxford. Still, I held out hope. When Liam told me his mother wanted to host a family dinner to celebrate our baby, I was surprised, but cautiously hopeful. Becoming a grandmother would soften her. Seeing her son prepare for fatherhood could help her see me differently. This baby could be the bridge. I should have trusted my gut. I'd always known, deep down, that something wasn't right. And that evening, as we drove toward her grand estate in Surrey where Camille lived alone after her divorce, that gut feeling roared back. The 3-story brown brick house, with white roses climbing its iron gates, looked like something from an old English drama, but it felt like a cold castle, one I had never truly been welcomed into. Liam held my hand as we walked to the door. I gently placed my other hand on my belly where our child grew daily. "She's trying, love," Liam said softly. "This means a lot to her." I gave him a weak smile. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that the woman who made me feel less than not white enough, not wealthy enough, not polished sufficient was finally ready to accept me as her daughter-in-law. Not just because I carried Liam's child, but because I was me. The door opened. And there stood Camille Carter, silver hair pulled into a perfect bun, an elegant ivory silk dress, and a smile thin as thread. "Amira, darling," she said, leaning in to air-kiss both my cheeks in that aristocratic European style. "You're looking rather full these days, right?" She said it playfully. But wrapped in that sweetness was a blade aimed straight at my heart. It wasn't a harmless joke. It was a reminder that I was still an outsider in her eyes. I gave a polite laugh, even as my heart pounded. Everyone was already there. Ellie, Liam's younger sister, her husband Marcus, and their 2 little kids. My ex-father-in-law, Robert, didn't come, but everyone else had been invited. The house buzzed with conversation, laughter, the aroma of roast meat, and rich red wine. For a brief moment, I truly wanted to believe I had been wrong about it all. That Camille could change. That this family had room for me. But sometimes, the most dangerous thing is hope. We stepped into the drawing room. The crystal chandelier sparkled like something out of a royal estate. Golden candlelight bathed the oak furniture, and the Persian rug underfoot felt soft as velvet. I smiled at Ellie and Marcus, both always far more warm and easygoing than their mother. The kids ran around my feet, fascinated by my belly, and Marcus joked about whether the baby was already kicking footballs inside. Camille poured wine, then slid a non-alcoholic mocktail toward me, as if I were a child who had to drink something different. She said quietly, "You're not drinking?" When I was pregnant with Liam, the doctor recommended some red wine each week. I nodded politely. Yes, but my doctor advised total abstinence, just to be safe. She raised her eyebrows, smiled as if that were too modern. I sat at the dining table, trying to convince myself I was reading too much into things. The atmosphere was still pleasant. Marcus shared his tales of fatherhood, and Ellie told stories of sudden water-breaking incidents that had everyone roaring with laughter. Even Camille laughed. For a moment, I thought maybe this time is different. Maybe she's trying. And then dinner began. Camille sat at the head of the table, like a queen without a crown. She carved the lamb with a silver knife engraved with Scottish crests. When it came to my plate, she paused just 2 seconds, but enough for me to notice before placing the slice onto my dish as though completing an obligation. Amira, she began, her voice light as silk cutting paper. Have you two thought about how you'll care for the baby? I mean, both of you work, don't you? I kept my tone steady. We're looking into a few childcare centers. And my mum said she might be able to help a couple of days a week. Camille set down her knife and fork and gave a faint smile. Your mum still works full-time at Queen's Hospital, right? I nodded. Yes. She's the head nurse. She's been in that role for over 20 years. Camille sipped her wine, tilting her head. That's admirable. But raising a child requires a lot of attention. Not everyone has the instinct to sacrifice. You know? No one said a word. Ellie looked down at her plate. Marcus poured himself water in a mechanical motion. Liam squeezed my hand gently under the table. I smiled tightly, still trying to hold it together. Camille continued, as if she were making conversation. Some young women these days seem to think having a baby is like playing with dolls. But in reality, you know, children need a stable environment. A mother who can reorder her priorities. I swallowed a mouthful of greens slowly, each of her words like a blow I couldn't dodge. You know what I'm trying to say, don't you? Camille asked, her voice soft, almost tender, which somehow made it all the more terrifying. I met her gaze, saying nothing. But inside, I knew exactly what she meant. Those words weren't just about me, they were about where I came from, my skin color, and the working-class family I'm proud of my skin color, and to say it outright. Her young women, her priorities, her sacrifice, every word was a way of casting doubt on my ability to be a mother, all while preserving her facade of aristocratic politeness. No one responded. The room was packed, yet suddenly silent. I sat there as if on trial with my mother-in-law as the judge, and everyone else the silent jury. I felt my breath tighten in my chest, and I knew this was only the beginning. I picked up the mocktail, trying to steady my hand. Camila, the baby inside me, gave a soft kick. A gentle reminder. My child was listening, feeling, and perhaps already being wounded, even before entering the world. Ellie broke the tension with a story about her child chewing on a crayon box, thinking it was ice cream. Marcus laughed heartily, but Camille didn't. She twisted the emerald ring on her finger, eyes locked on me. Amira, she began again, this time with a voice almost sweet. Have you thought about taking parenting classes? I looked up, surprised she'd ask something like that in front of everyone. We've been reading books, I replied calmly. We have a plan. She nodded. I only ask because not everyone grows up in an environment where they can observe proper mothering. She said it without blinking. I slowly set my fork down. What do you mean by that? Oh, don't take it the wrong way, she replied, her voice still soft. It's just, some families are better equipped for this. Some aren't. The air froze again. Ellie looked up, eyes wide. Marcus stared into his plate like he wished it would swallow him whole. Liam started to speak, but Camille had already taken the floor. I'm just concerned, she said, looking entirely composed, that sometimes people think pregnancy is the first step toward a family, but really having a baby isn't enough. Motherhood requires a foundation, stability, patience, discipline, responsibility. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. Some women are born to their mother, Camille continued. Others need a lot of learning. I hope you're not thinking of this as something you can learn on the go. By now, no one was moving. No clinking silverware, no chatter, only the ticking of the antique clock on the wall. Camille straightened her posture, placed her hand lightly on the table's edge, and her eyes focused on my belly. I just wonder, do you truly understand what you're stepping into? Because, as I've said before, not everyone is meant to be a mother. It felt like a slap, but worse than the words was the certainty that this slap had been planned. Every syllable, every pause, every gaze intentional. It was not a careless remark, but a slow execution of character cloaked in concern. No one laughed. No one diffused the moment. No one changed the subject. Liam spoke up, voice low and tight. Mum, what exactly are you trying to say? Camille still looked at me. I'm not trying to say anything. I'm just worried. I didn't respond. I looked around the room. Ellie clutched her napkin. Marcus furrowed his brow. And Liam, my husband, stared at his mother as if he no longer recognized her. But the real pain wasn't in the words themselves. What silenced me was how she said them, soft, smooth, sweet like a blessing, but cruel as a verdict. It wasn't scolding. It was a denial of my right to be a mother, because of who I was, where I came from, and maybe because of the color of my skin. I've heard this my whole life, dressed as honest advice, well-meaning observations, or glances no one claimed responsibility for. But never had it been this clear. Not until this dinner, which was supposed to celebrate a new life. I thought I was used to it. But when the judgment was aimed at the child inside me, I knew. This time, I couldn't stay silent. I knew this feeling well. That sharp, suffocating stillness that takes over a room after someone says something so clear, so cutting, that no one dares to respond. It's like working in a place where people joke about multicultural colleagues and glance at you like you're some exotic species. Or when they ask where you're from, and when you say Brixton, they follow up with, "No. I mean, where are you really from?" I used to think I could endure it. If I were patient enough, people would learn to love me. But tonight, when Camille said those words, not only denying me but questioning my ability to be a mother, I felt as if she had tried to strip away the future of both myself and the child I was carrying. And then, I felt it. A gentle flutter from my belly. Camila. The kick wasn't strong or unusual, but it awakened something I had tried for years to quiet down. It reminded me that I was no longer alone. I wasn't just defending my dignity anymore. I was protecting the world my daughter would grow up in. A world where if we weren't careful, she might hear those exact words from someone who was supposed to love her. I inhaled slowly and set my fork down without a sound. I placed both hands over my belly, where my daughter was silently listening to it all. Then I turned to look at Camille. She still sat there, reclining in her chair, eyes full of feigned concern, like a teacher gently correcting a naive student. "Camille," I said. Her brows twitched the first time I had addressed her by name, not Mum, not Mrs. Carter. She gave a thin smile. "Yes, darling?" I lifted my chin. "You're right about one thing," I said slowly. "Not everyone is meant to be a mother." The room froze like glass. Ellie looked up. Marcus furrowed his brow. Liam held his breath. I didn't look away. A real mother protects her child from harm. She lifts them, not tears them down. She creates a space where that child knows they are loved, respected, and matter no matter where they come from or the color of their skin. Camille's mask of refined poise cracked just slightly. A good mother doesn't use words as weapons, I continued. She doesn't diminish others to feel taller herself, and she certainly doesn't question a woman's ability to mother based on her background or bloodline. My voice wasn't loud, but it was steady. I felt myself grow with every word, not in years, but in self-worth. "You asked if I'm ready to be a mother?" I leaned forward slightly. "I am. I'll mother how I was taught, with strength, sacrifice, and unconditional love." Camille didn't reply. She had lost control of the narrative for the first time that evening. "I've seen your kind of concern my whole life," I said. "Wrapped in kindness, delivered in the name of what's best, but beneath it is judgment, exclusion, a quiet message that says, we are this, and you are other." I turned to Liam. He hadn't moved. His eyes shimmered not with shame or confusion, but something else. Recognition. Maybe for the first time he saw me fully, not just as his wife, but as a woman fighting for herself and the life growing inside her. I turned back to Camille. "And you know what?" I said. "Tonight, I realized something. I already am a mother. Not because I'm pregnant, but because I know that being a mother means standing up when someone tries to hurt your child, even if that someone is you." Camille opened her mouth, seemingly to respond, but all that came out was a soft "ah" before silence reclaimed her. I didn't wait for her composure to return. I continued, each word cutting clean through the veneer of civility like a blade. "You asked if I'm ready to be a mother," I said. "I'll answer not with a checklist of what I've prepared, but with my heart." I placed a hand over my chest. My voice did not tremble. "I'm ready to love my child unconditionally. No but, no if. I'm ready to work 3 jobs if I have to, so my child has milk to drink, clothes to wear, and peaceful sleep. I'm ready to stay up all night when she's sick, to learn how to soothe her when I'm exhausted, and to stand in the bleachers cheering, even if she's only the substitute. I looked at Camille. She tried not to lower her gaze, but her lips pressed into a tight line. I'm ready to teach my child to walk into any room confidently, even when she's the only one with darker skin. I'm ready to teach her that her worth doesn't come from other people's eyes, her parents' titles, or her grandmother's tone of voice. I turned to Ellie. She wasn't hiding her tears anymore. Marcus was holding her hand. The dinner table had become a stage, and the truth, long buried, was finally speaking. But more than anything, I said, I'm ready to teach my child that no one, not even family, has the right to make her feel small. That love does not require silence. That respect does not mean swallowing shame. I pressed both hands against my belly. Camila, my daughter, was there, silent and strong, like the words I was now speaking aloud. I will teach my child that kindness can coexist with strength, that she can be gentle and unyielding at once. She can respect others without ever allowing herself to be diminished. I lifted my head. My voice was steady, resolute. And if that earns me judgment, then thank you, because I have no intention of becoming a silent mother just to be accepted into a house where respect has no place. Camille said nothing now. She looked at me like she was seeing someone entirely new. No longer the immigrant daughter-in-law, the ordinary girl, the woman learning on the job, but a woman standing tall in the whole light of truth. You once asked me, I said, if I truly knew what I was stepping into. I looked her straight in the eye. Well, now I'll ask you, Camille. Do you know what you just said? No one responded. You tried to use a celebration to bury my worth, but no one gets to define me except me. And you certainly don't get to define the child I carry. I stood from my chair unhurried, unshaken. There was a silence now, not of discomfort, but of recognition. A quiet nod from everyone at the table, an unspoken acknowledgement that something immense had just happened. I know exactly the kind of mother I don't want to become, I said. And thanks to you, I'm more certain of that than ever. Camille sat frozen like a statue. The silence spread again, but this time, it was no longer awkward. It was a reckoning. I remained standing, one hand on my belly, my palm burning hot. No one at the table moved. Camille, the woman who had always commanded every room she entered, now sat as silent as the chair beneath her. In this 3-story Surrey estate, where every brick echoed the pride of legacy, she had just been stripped of her oldest weapon, control through silence. Liam was still seated, head bowed. But then I saw him rise slowly, very slowly, as though stepping out from a shadow that had cloaked him since childhood. He walked around the table, toward me, not glancing at his mother, sister, or Marcus. He looked only at me. When he reached me, he placed one hand gently on my back, the other threading his fingers through mine. He didn't speak for a few seconds. Then he turned to face Camille. Mum, he began, his voice low but unwavering. What you just said was truly awful. Camille looked up, eyes wide. Liam, don't, he cut her off. No excuses. No, I was just worried. No, that's not what I meant. Because you knew exactly what you meant. Ellie suddenly raised a hand to her mouth. Marcus remained silent. The air in the room had thickened like winter fog rolling over the English countryside. Liam squeezed my hand. Amira is the bravest, strongest, and kindest woman I've ever known. And if you can't see that, you must look hard at the kind of grandmother you want to be. Camille tried to smile. I just care. I didn't think you'd... No, Liam said, voice firm. You don't care. You control. You tried to make my wife feel like she wasn't enough, not white enough, not refined enough, not the right kind of us you imagined. But you're wrong. Each word landed like a nail driven into the oak floor beneath us. Amira isn't just enough. She's everything I ever dreamed of in a partner. And she is the perfect mother for our daughter. Camille could no longer hold her graceful composure. Her face flushed red. Her lips quivered. If you can't respect my wife, Liam continued, voice gentler now but still resolute, then you will lose the right to be part of our daughter's life. Liam glanced around the table, realizing for the first time that every pair of eyes was locked onto him. This isn't just about you and me anymore, he said. This is about a child who will grow up knowing that no one has the right to belittle her. Not even someone who carries the title grandmother. Camille opened her mouth. I only... No. Liam interrupted again. You didn't. Only. You chose. And tonight, I choose too. I choose my wife. I choose my daughter. I choose truth. He looked at me then, and for the first time that evening, his eyes didn't waver. They shone like the first light of morning. I choose my family. For the first time that night, I no longer felt like a stranger in that grand house. I was no longer the outsider. I was at the heart of a family being rewritten, a family not built on bloodlines, but with respect. And at that very moment, I knew we had drawn a new line. A line that half-hearted apologies or performative dinners couldn't blur. A line that, if crossed with contempt, would leave the trespasser behind. Whether or not they bore the name Carter, we left the table. There was no dessert, no peppermint tea, no customary phrases like "thank you for coming" or "sleep well." We stood and walked straight to the door, my hand still resting on my belly, Liam's hand holding mine. No one stopped us. No one spoke. Camille did not walk us out. She sat motionless like a statue cracked down the middle in a dining room, adorned with oil portraits of ancestors who once owned land across southern England. The heavy wooden door closed behind us. The sound wasn't loud, but it echoed like a final verdict. A quiet punctuation at the end of a long era. Once inside the car, Liam started the engine without a word. The dark road ahead felt like the entrance to a new life no longer steered by a controlling matriarch behind the wheel. As the car merged onto the motorway, Liam finally spoke softly. I'm proud of you. I squeezed his hand. We're a team, I said. I did it for all three of us. 3 days later, Camille called. Not to apologize, but to clarify what she meant. The familiar refrain. I'm just worried about my grandchild. I didn't think things would be misunderstood this way. Liam ended the call after 2 minutes. She called back this time, with a tone of accusation. I gave birth to you. And you're choosing her over me? He didn't respond. A week passed. Then Ellie called me. The call began in silence, then a long exhale. Amira, she said, I'm sorry. I should have said something. A long time ago. I didn't blame Ellie. She grew up in the same air. Silence was the unspoken law, where good children didn't upset their mother. But that night, something had shifted in her too. I've heard her say similar things to me, she continued, about how I raise my kids, about the man I married, but I never dared speak back. I admire you for doing what I never could. I listened, and I felt something crumbling, not a family, but a structure, a toxic one, finally beginning to fall. Another week passed. Marcus, Ellie's husband, texted Liam. Your mum needed to hear that. Your sister carried guilt for 7 years just because she didn't go to Oxford. My wife said that night was the first time she felt like someone finally stood up for her. And then, the most unexpected message came. From someone I thought had long bowed out of this game. Robert Carter, Camille's ex-husband. He called me directly. Amira, hello. Ellie told me everything. I paused, unsure how to respond. Robert and Camille had divorced 5 years ago. He'd always remained neutral, the kind of man who avoided conflict, just like Liam used to be. Camille doesn't speak for this family, he said. She thinks everything can be masked with elegance. But wine and linen tablecloths can't hide what's in a person's heart. I gripped the phone tighter. You're the best thing that's happened to Liam, and you'll be an extraordinary mother. I couldn't speak, and in that moment I realized, truth travels. When one person finds the courage to speak, others slowly, perhaps begin to find their own, in the silence they once accepted. Camille called 2 more times. Once to ask, so, do I still get to see the baby? And once to declare, I don't think I did anything wrong. We didn't answer. Because sometimes, silence isn't endurance. It's a boundary, a new line drawn, an answer far clearer than any justification ever could be. I went into labor on a cold February morning, with fog draping over London's sky and car horns echoing off Tower Bridge as if from another world. Liam had been ready for weeks. He had the hospital bag packed with care, a classical music playlist for the birthing room, and a color-coded contraction tracking notebook bound in a hardcover. But what steadied me most wasn't any of those things. It was his eyes, filled with quiet resolve, and the words he whispered as he lifted me into the car. You're not alone. I'm here, and I'm ready to be a father because of you. The pain lasted nearly 10 hours. And when I finally heard Camille Diallo, Carter's first cry, fierce, unafraid, unmistakable, I broke down. Not just in joy, but in deep release. Because my daughter had arrived in the world, I had fought to make her worthy of her. A world I had cleared of whispered venom with every ounce of myself. Camila weighed 3.2 kilograms. She had thick curly hair and a pouty mouth just like me. But her eyes, those were Liam's. Deep, brown, still but sharp. When the doctor placed her on my chest, she opened them and looked at me for the first time. And I swear, in that gaze, I saw recognition. I whispered, "You are awaited, you are loved, and you never have to ask permission to exist." Ellie was the first to arrive at the hospital. She brought a bouquet of dried lavender and a handmade cream-colored knitted blanket. "I started making this last month," she said, eyes misty, "because I knew she was coming. And I knew you'd do it." Then came Marcus, with their 2 kids and a giant teddy bear nearly the size of the hospital bed. He took pictures, stuck sunflower stickers on Camila's onesie, and joked, "She's going to run this house, isn't she?" I laughed, not because of the joke, but because I felt it. This was family. Robert drove over 2 hours from Bristol to meet his granddaughter. When he held Camila in his arms, he cried. Not loudly, not theatrically, just silent tears, falling down the face of a man who had once lived too quietly, but now had found a way to stand with what was right. "She'll grow up knowing she is loved unconditionally," he said. "And if anyone dares to tell her otherwise, she'll have a family ready to fight for her." Camille did not come. She sent a card, white background, silver edges, pre-printed words. "Congratulations on the arrival of your little angel. Wishing all the best for your family." Below it, in her handwriting, Camille Carter. No flowers. No inquiry about my health. No "I'm sorry." And most of all, no presents. Liam placed the card in a drawer without comment. I didn't feel pain. Not anymore. Because Camila was born into a world where everyone around her had chosen love consciously. No one was immune to boundaries. No one had access just because they bore the name Carter. I watched my daughter sleep, her tiny mouth pursed, her little fist curled, her breath steady. And I understood something. We didn't just bring a child into the world. We had forged a new reality, a world where she never has to seek permission to belong, where silence isn't mistaken for respect, 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 where Black women don't have to prove they deserve to be mothers. They are mothers. And that is a truth that cannot be denied. 2 weeks after Camila was born, I woke to a quiet morning. London was still hushed. The buses were not yet rumbling down the high street, and pale sunlight filtered through the sheer curtains. My daughter slept on my chest, her breath light as mist. Liam lay beside us, one hand resting on the edge of her bassinet, as if letting go might cause her to vanish. I looked down at Camila and thought, you will never have to stand in a room full of people and wonder if you belong there. You will never have to lower your voice, shrink yourself, or bow your head just to be called polite. And for that to happen, I have to start with me. I thought back to that night in Surrey, when Camille said, "Some people aren't meant to be mothers," as if she were divinely appointed to grant or deny motherhood. I thought about how she used words like concern, stability, and sacrifice as weapons soft, but slicing. And I remembered the moment I stood up. That night, I thought I was pushing back, but now I know I was rebooting a whole system, not just within the Carter family, but within myself. I was raised to believe love is forgiveness, love is patience, love is enduring. But no one told me this. Love is also setting boundaries. Love is saying enough. Love is not letting people hurt you because they share your blood. I once thought silence was grace, but that night I learned silence at times is complicity. I once feared that speaking up would cost me a family, but in truth, it helped me build one, a real one, where no one has to stay silent to be accepted. I used to believe, I'll be a mother when I give birth. But the truth is, I became a mother the moment I said, I know exactly the kind of mother I don't want to become. Now, I don't just see my daughter when I look at Camila. I see proof, a living testament to a choice made right, a child born not only into love, but into a world I fought to shield from toxicity, even when that threat came dressed as family. I know the day will come when she asks questions about her grandmother, about that night, about why her mother stays silent around someone who once sat at the center of it all. And I will tell her the truth. I will tell her. Some people wear politeness as a mask for contempt, that some words don't need to be shouted to leave scars. And sometimes loving someone means no longer letting them hurt you. Here's what I've learned. Dignity, dignity, dignity is not something you beg for, it's something you protect. Respect, respect, respect. Respect is not inherited, it is earned through action. And motherhood doesn't begin with giving birth. It begins the moment you stand up when your child needs you most. That night in Surrey, I wasn't just responding to Camille, I was responding to everyone. Whoever believed I had to shrink to be loved, who thought I should stay quiet to keep the peace, who assumed I should be grateful just to be included. I no longer need that kind of acceptance. I am a mother, and I know I belong here, without anyone's permission. Camila is 2 years old. You've learned to confidently say no, making me laugh out loud. You climb onto chairs like the world already belongs to you. You have your father's eyes, but your jaw, firm as stone, is all mine. You don't know what happened before you were born. You don't know about that dinner table, your grandmother's stare, or the silence so thick it could have been carved with a knife. You don't know your mother once wanted to stay quiet to keep the peace. And you don't yet know that you were born of a very conscious choice, that I would never let you grow up in the toxic air of contempt disguised as concern. One day, when you're old enough, I will tell you. I won't hide it. I will tell you the truth. Not so that you'll hate anyone, but so that you'll understand. Family is not an excuse to belittle you. Blood does not exempt anyone from the duty to respect. And love should never require your silence. I will tell you about that night, when everyone else turned away or bowed their heads, and one woman stood up, hand on her belly, looking straight at the one who hurt her, and said, "No one gets to take my dignity, dignity, dignity. No one. Not even you." I'll tell you that the bravest thing she did was not shouting, but speaking the truth calmly. When someone tried to make her afraid, you don't have to fit any mold to be loved. You don't need to attend prestigious schools to have a voice. You don't have to lower your head in a boardroom to be called humble. You only need to remember one thing. You are enough. You have always been enough, no matter who tries to make you doubt it. And if one day you walk into a room and feel like no one wants you there, I want you to remember, you are not an intruder. You are the one bringing light. If someone uses polite language to stab you in the back, I want you to remember, words are not measured by volume, but by intent. Look straight at them and name it for what it is. If someone tells you to stay silent for the sake of family, I want you to ask them, what is family, if not the ones who protect us from pain? Camila, you are the first child in the Carter family, to be born on a brand new foundation, where dignity has no price tag, where love requires no sacrifice, and where truth is spoken, even when it makes people uncomfortable. I didn't just fight to bring you into the world. I fought to break the chain of silence. And if the day ever comes, when you must stand up, as I once did, you will not be alone, because you are the daughter of a woman who learned to stand tall, long before she ever learned to carry you. I love you. No conditions, no limits, no justifications. You are Camila Diallo Carter, and you were born to hold your head high.